Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette. As we do every week, a brand new guest on the show talking about their life in the world of martial arts. And this week's guest, this gentleman is not only a martial artist, but he's a author. And the reason I found him, he's actually the president and founder of the Martial Arts History Museum. And I'm definitely looking forward to talking about that as we get through our conversation here. But let's welcome to the show, Michael Matsuda. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, Brian. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. I'm glad you were able to do it and glad we made it work out. So before
it's an honor, sir.
Definitely want to chat about the museum. But before we get into that part with all my guests, we kind of go back to the beginning. I want to know about that. The very beginning, what was that first spark? What was your first experience with martial arts?
1967. 1967, I was about maybe 8 years old.
Okay.
And I was, my mom would go to her cousin's place. And her cousin sublet all the rooms, or a bunch of rooms there, to many individuals, college students and all that. And one of the people named Jose, he was a student of Ark Wai Wong. And while I'd go, my mom would talk with her cousin, and I would go see Juan, and Juan would be teaching me Kung Fu. So that was my first experience, no official class, in 1967. And then I did that for about maybe, I think maybe 6 months to a year, when we went there. But we went there like 2 to 3 times a week. So
oh, wow. Nice.
My mom loved to see her cousin.
Okay.
Anyway, as she'd gossip there with her, I'd go to Juan's place, knock on his door, and he'd show me moves. But anyway, my formal training started in 1968. I was very involved in the Japanese Community Center in Sun Valley, California. And it was a judo class. That was the only thing they had back then. There was no karate, no kung fu, no anything real commercial school or anything out there. But they were teaching judo at the Japanese Community Center. Now, they normally don't teach kids as a rule back then.
Yep.
Anyone 16 under, they didn't teach you. That was just how it was. But because I was part of the community center and me and my friend were there, we were the 2 smallest kids in the group, and they accepted us because we were part of the community center.
Okay.
And so there was the 2 little us, me and Donalisa, were being skinny, scrawny little kids being flipped all over the place.
Fun.
And my dad, who had learned judo in 1926, I think, 27, from his friend's father, knew the benefits of judo. So he made me enroll in the class for 1 year, which I did.
Okay.
And I hated every day of it.
Really?
I stayed, we were tortured. We were so small that they would flip us in the air. And before we hit the ground, they flip us again. And then they just throw us around like rag dolls. We're 2 little kids in amongst people who are adults,
Yep.
And they really took advantage of us. So it wasn't too fun. I didn't enjoy going it. I hated every moment of it.
Wow.
1 year to the day after I finished, I quit. And lo and behold, in school, the school bully was jumping on everybody's back for some reason, and he jumped on mine, and I flipped him.
Nice.
And I said, "This works."
That's
so
great.
I didn't continue in judo, but dummy me, I enrolled in jujitsu. Dummy me because I wanted to get away from judo.
Yep.
But, of course, going to jujitsu is not getting away from judo.
Not much better.
But I did judo, and then some guy came in named Al DeCascas, and he started demonstrating in the school. He was a friend of the instructor, and he wore this black outfit, and he had these circular moves. And I said, that's it. That's the style I'm going to take. But unfortunately, I couldn't find it. So I enrolled in a karate class. I did that for about a year.
Okay.
And then my mom found an ad in the Valley Green Sheet. Back then they had a newspaper called the Valley Green Sheet,
Okay.
and Daily News. And there was a Kung Fu class being taught at the YMCA.
Okay.
And that was it. That was the early, like 71, 73 or something like that.
Okay.
Early, before the Bruce Lee boom and all that.
Right.
I started taking Kung Fu, and that was it. Loved it ever since. It was under Lau Fujioka, who was under Buxom Kong. So I trained with Lau Fujioka for 3 years, and then went to the main school and continued my training with Buxom Kong and Vernon Rayetta for about 10 years. In between that time, a lot of this overlaps,
Yeah.
In between that time, one of the guys who came into the school was kind of a wimpy guy. He wasn't very good, but he was a teenager just like me. He was just a little older. And he was learning a martial art, in college. And he said, this guy's teaching me some Kung Fu. And I said, great. Okay. The more the merrier. So I said, he's teaching you at college? He said, yeah. He said, well, why don't you, he goes, I'll teach you whatever I learned. So he was, when I was already in the Kung Fu school, this gentleman was a beginner in the Kung Fu school.
Okay.
I was already advanced in the Kung Fu school. So I would teach him the tiger style Hungar Kung Fu.
Okay.
And then he would teach me this new style of Kung Fu. So we were exchanging, back and forth. So little did we know that the art he was studying was called Monkey Kung Fu.
Okay.
So I trained with him together about 35, maybe over 35, close to 40 years.
Wow.
We became the best of friends. We did Monkey Kung Fu together for 40 years. I still continued my Hungar Shaolin Kung Fu.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I took about a year of training in Jeet Kune Do under one of Dan Inosanto's students when I was going to Chinese school to learn Chinese.
Okay.
And I took a little bit of him because it was part of the classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I trained with Cecil Peoples doing kickboxing back in the early 80s,
Nice.
I think it was. So that's my whole gambit of martial arts, from mainly Kung Fu has been my favorite of all. But I love kickboxing. I still teach Kung Fu today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also doing a little bit of Crane Kung Fu as part of our system as well.
Okay.
So, but mainly Monkey Kung Fu. COVID, canceled my classes, but now we're being able to restart them. So I'm going to restart teaching Monkey Kung Fu in about a month.
Okay.
And that's it. About 53 years total
Nice.
in the martial arts.
Let's back up just a little. So what, obviously you said you did the judo for a year and you hated it. So
Right.
what made you want to continue with martial arts after hating it for a year? What drew you to continue to study and made you want to go and seek out other styles?
Flipping the bully.
That was it. Okay.
I'm a skinny, scrawny kid, and I'm a real nice person. I've always been a nice person my entire life, and people tend to take advantage of nice people.
Yep.
And I'm still a very nice person. And lo and behold, this guy was jumping on everybody, and he thought I was easy prey. Like still today, they think I'm easy prey.
Mm-hmm.
They find out quickly I'm not. But I thought I was easy prey, and then he jumped me in instinct. I flipped him, and that was it. That sealed the deal. And I knew I was going to take martial arts for the rest of my life. And
Nice.
I just had to find the one that fit me best.
Okay. So what made you want to start teaching? You started, trading ideas with friends and working with, what made you, what drew you to the teaching part of martial arts? Because I know a lot of people don't teach. They're students their whole lives. They never teach. Some people I talk to say that they learn better once they started teaching. Just kind of curious how you got into teaching and what was it about that appealed to you?
My father has always been a leader. He was the head of the YMCA in our area of our group. He was always somehow taking charge as being the person in charge. And so he put those leadership qualities in me, I think,
Okay.
From a young age. And he was always busy scheduling and making speeches. And I learned I became a public speaker because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Doing public speaking at 9 years old, I think.
Nice.
My father forced me to be a public speaker. But I think that leadership quality, transcended to me. And then when I started taking Kung Fu, doing it 3 years, I started teaching my friend to catch up to me. And I really enjoyed it because it helped me become a better student as well as,
Mm-hmm.
teaching somebody else. And then in high school, I started the Hop Sing Tong Martial Arts Club, and I headed that club of about 50 students there.
Wow, cool.
And I taught them. I taught 50 students there.
Okay.
And then when I was a teenager, I had my own school temporarily for about maybe 6 months or something like that. So, I enjoyed teaching, made me a better person. It made me a better martial artist. It improved my skill as a martial artist, and it helped improve other people. And I learned from them as well. I am not the best performing looking martial artist, but I'm very good at execution.
Okay.
I know I can do it very well, and I do it very well. So I never have to worry about that. But like one of my students, he's much better than I am as far as style, as far as movement, as far as everything else. And I'm very, very proud to have him as part of that. It's an extension of me, into him. And it just makes me, it just makes me proud to see him. I like people to surpass me. I really do.
Definitely.
And that's the key. That's the key, because I'm not going to be here forever. And I think I enjoy teaching and sharing that. And again, it makes me a better martial artist through them.
So how do you think your teaching style has changed over the years?
It hasn't.
Really?
No, it hasn't. I teach a no-nonsense style.
Okay.
Even though I do traditional Kung Fu and enjoy all the traditional stuff in there, over the years, learning from people like Cecil Peoples, I've learned to say, okay, we need to make sure this works and works well, not just works a little bit, works well. So I've always used that style that I learned, not the movements, but the style that I learned in kickboxing into the art I take, because the art I teach, it does have its own kickboxing team. It's a very powerful art. People just don't realize it. And we have our own kickboxing team years ago. And I kind of mirror that of what they are, to make sure people learn traditional, but they have to learn to really kick someone's butt really well.
Nice.
So my style of teaching has not changed since I started. It's been pretty much the same, and it works pretty good. I can honestly say I'm very proud of my students who have been in a fight and won within 1 or 2 moves. That was it.
Wow.
And I'm very honored that, and that's what I want to see. You win in 1 or 2 moves, and they have done that. So my style has continued to be the same.
Nice. So if someone wanted you to explain to them the difference between monkey kung fu and other styles of kung fu, how would you kind of describe that?
Oh, very simple. Monkey Kung Fu is, okay, regular Kung Fu, you're fighting someone hand to hand, okay, right there. You're in their face, you're kicking their face, you're kicking their body, hitting their body and all that. Monkey Kung Fu's territory is in the ground. Now, think of it this way. A monkey against a tiger. Tiger comes into the village, a little area where the monkeys are. The monkey is not going to beat the tiger, period. It's not going to happen. Their goal is to get rid of the tiger, get the tiger out of there. So what the monkeys do, they come from different angles and they take a swack at the tiger. They run so fast, they whack the tiger with a stick or with its, its arm or whatever from different directions. And they keep doing that as hard as they can. And eventually the tiger gets so annoyed, the tiger's not going to hurt. So annoyed, the tiger leaves. Okay. For Monkey Kung Fu, your goal is not to beat your opponent, because in monkey, you're too small. You're going to get beaten, period. So you need to find a way to injure that person with 1 or 2 blows and get out of there quickly. That is the goal of Monkey Kung Fu. So you train to aim at certain vulnerable parts. You, like Muay Thai, you use your knees, you use your elbows and different parts, and you injure that person in vulnerable areas as hard as you can and get out of there quickly. Okay. And that's what Monkey Kung Fu. We're not going to win toe-to-toe. That's just not going to happen in Monkey Kung Fu. So realizing that, you need to perfect certain skills to get out of the situation. And that is the whole thing in Monkey Kung Fu. Your specialty is bringing someone to the ground. That's your specialty. Bringing them low, bringing them in an uncomfortable position, moving quickly, grabbing someone's arm. Instead of pulling someone's arm like a block, a normal block, you grab the arm, push it out of the way, or grab it and you pull it to the side. Monkey Kung Fu will block, grab the arm, and push the arm to the ground, including the entire body. As you're coming to the ground, you're so comfortable kicking to the ground, you give a nice kick right to the ribs or an elbow right to the face, and then get out of there that quick. So the movement is quick, it's sharp, it is extremely powerful, and you have to be because of monkey. And then you get out of the situation, and you won the fight because you got out of danger. And that's what Monkey Kung Fu is all about in a nutshell.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I knew very little.
Yeah,
I've heard of it. I knew very little about it though. So
yeah, it's the most unusual style of Kung Fu, and it's very unorthodox, very unpredictable, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, but it's very effective. Very effective.
So does that blend well with other styles? Because I know you've trained in other styles. You trained in other styles of Kung Fu, and you've trained in other, judo, jiu-jitsu, and karate. Does Monkey Kung Fu blend with those well, or not really?
Oh yeah, you should be able to do the same front kick from a standing position or for almost at the ground. So in other words, you're perfecting your ground kicks, like your knees very bent, and you're kicking, which is very hard to kick from a low position. You're practicing kicking from a low position. So when you're up at a high position, which we also practice, your kicks are even more powerful because you're starting low. It'd be a great art for mixed martial artists. I don't know why they haven't tried it, but it'd be a fantastic art for those in the UFC who are especially fighting on the ground. This would be great for them.
Okay.
Maybe they'll find out after this broadcast and come over and learn.
Hey, hopefully. I've had some UFC guys on here, so hopefully they'll be listening. Who knows? So let's talk about, now I mentioned you were an author. You've written a few books. Talk about some of the books and kind of how those came about.
I've always hated writing.
Really?
Hated writing all my life
until
I read Inside Kung Fu.
Okay.
Black Belt Magazine. When I was in high school, I was already doing Kung Fu, and I was doing martial arts before that. And then the magazine, Black Belt Magazine, was out there, and I thought this was cool. I get every issue, and Inside Kung Fu came out. Once Inside Kung Fu came out, I said, okay, I want to start doing something with a magazine, and the best way for me to do with the magazine is to write for the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to college. I was still in college. I was just after high school, and I went and got a journalism degree, and I contacted Inside Kung Fu, and they were already doing articles on my instructor, and I was part of that, and we were already doing that. So I said, I'd like to do some writing for you guys, and they said, okay. At that time, they had great editors.
Right.
In the early days, it changed later, but in the early days, they had really great editors, Inside Kung Fu, and they gave me an opportunity to start writing, and that was it. My first story was a cover story of Bruce Lee in 1983 with Danny Santo.
Okay.
And then later I started writing a bunch of articles on Monkey Kung Fu and many other styles. And I wrote with Black Belt and then Inside Kung Fu, both of them, as a contributing editor for about 20 years total.
Okay.
But in that time period, about 1983, I said, I'm writing for the magazine. I was already writing for the magazine by 1983. And I got my journalism degree, and I was working for Valley Star newspaper. And I was doing the production and doing the magazine as well. And I said, I can do my own magazine. I don't need these guys. And that's what I did. In 1983, I opened my own magazine called Martial Art Magazine. Now, the key to the whole magazine, and I'm hoping I'm not boring you.
Oh, no, of course not.
The key to the whole magazine is I was working there as in the newsroom for Valley Star College, and they had a new equipment that just brought in back then. It was a typesetting machine back then before computers.
Okay.
And it was brand new, and none of them knew how to use it. Fortunately, I had gone to school at LA Trade Tech for a year and learned that very machine. So I made a deal. I said, I tell you what, I will teach you guys everything about that machine, and you let me use the college to make my magazine.
Nice.
Use all the equipment and everything. And it was a deal. And that's where it was. That's how Martial Art Magazine was launched. It cost me just like $2,000, I think, total to start the whole magazine. I ran it for about 4 years, never lost a dime on it. And then, so that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, it wasn't doing what I wanted. I wanted to cover more history, but I kept getting tournament ads. So I had to focus on tournaments. And then someone made me an offer to buy the magazine because they wanted to do more tournaments. And so I sold it right there in 1988.
Okay.
But, during that time period, I started writing books on my style, Monkey Kung Fu. But as I started doing the museum here, and we'll get into that later, I started writing books for the museum. So I've written about maybe 7 books for the museum, and then I've written children's books, and then I started writing books on other people as well. So I think I've done maybe 15 books I've written, all published, some with a publisher, some with self-publishing, some with self-printing. It varies, on all that. But yeah, about 15 books total. I try to do a new book every year. I do my best to do a new book every year.
Okay.
And so I've gotten to the point I actually enjoy it a little bit.
Well, you mentioned kids' books, and I was just looking through some of the list here on Amazon and came across this one, the Adventures of, is it Ichi and His Friends? Just talk a little bit about some of the kids' books and what was the purpose behind those.
That was actually my favorite book to write. Really was.
Nice.
Years ago, I used to work for Walt Disney Productions as a graphic artist. And I really admired Walt Disney and what he did. This was back in the 70s. And I really admired what he did. And I said, when I had the magazine, I want to, back then there were no computers.
Yep.
Everything's hand-drawn and everything. So I said, when I did the museum, I said, I need to make characters like Walt Disney characters. So I created these characters called Ichi and Sifu and all of them. And I drew the characters, and then I sent it to my friend who really groomed it up, and he did a fantastic job of grooming them. But I created all the characters, their names, and I said, I'm going to put these characters as part of the museum, but they need a story. Everybody wants to know who they are. So I said, okay, I'm going to make a whole backstory about each of the characters. And that's what I did. I made a book about their entire journey of who they are, where they came from. It's all kids, and how they made it to Mountain Temple. I designed it as a eventual cartoon series. That's what I designed it as. So that's how I'm going to pitch it later as. But it's a book series. It was a lot of fun to write. I really enjoyed it. I created a workbook with it as well. I'm working on the next book, and I'm hoping to have a whole series of books about Ichi and his friends. They're fun books. They're great to read, and they're all about inspiration. And they're storybooks. They're not picture books. They're storybooks. So everybody, once they read it, they really enjoy it and can relate to a lot of stuff in there. I like to put my friends in my books, so I'm always, if you notice in there, if you know me and you know who my friends are, you'll see their names here and there.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I love the cover of it. The design is just beautiful. So it looks like I wish my kids were a little younger. I'd probably get them for them, but
well, they're actually pretty good for even an older age. They really are.
Okay.
People enjoy it. I think it was a Queen or Princess Cynthia. That's after Cynthia Rothrock, and a few people are in there.
Nice. That's very cool.
I say, here are you. There's Rumiko, Stephen Hayes' wife is in there. Okay. And other people's names are in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like to, people help out the museum. I like to put their name somewhere. You know what I mean? It's a way of saying thank you.
That's really cool. I will definitely put links to that in the show notes so people can check out your books, because that looks really cool. And anything to get kids interested in that kind of stuff is I'm definitely for. So
yeah, it'll get kids really interested in the martial arts. It really will.
Perfect. So let's kind of shift to the museum a little bit. Talk about, first of all, where the idea came from, and then the kind of the steps you took to get it off the ground.
Oh, it's a crazy idea.
That's good. The good ones usually are.
Something I say to everybody: don't ever do it. The martial arts, growing up in the 60s, was a great time for the martial arts. I was still a young kid then, 8 or 9 years old. But, back then I got to read about or see them, never really meeting them, but see them, people like Chuck Norris and Joe Louis and those guys in the early days. And to be there in different ways, either to be at a tournament and watch them or see them in the magazine or whatever way it was. And most of the 99% of the people I met, so which is nice. And over the years to see them grow in the martial arts, to see Al Dacascos, meeting him, as I talked about earlier, and Eric Lee, and all these guys at the prime of their life, going on the tournament floor. And to see, especially, Gene LaBelle was one of my earliest guys I met. He was doing wrestling at the Valley Garden right over here down the street in Sun Valley. And my dad used to take us because he was a big wrestling fan. And it would be Rocky Johnson, The Rock's father, Freddie Blassie, Gene LaBelle. All those guys would be wrestling. So we go to the wrestling ring, right, not far from here at all the time. So I got to see Gene LaBelle out there wrestling, and that was really fun to see all those guys. So growing up, in that time period, I met Fumio Demura when he first came here to America, and Takaboda, and all these guys, to know them firsthand personally was a great experience, really was. Mm-hmm. And to be a part of all that fun stuff and meet. Well, I knew who Bruce Lee was. He was alive back then. I knew who he was. Yep. We all knew who he was back then. And Bong Soo-han and all these guys from the early days, Hyo Cho and Jun Ri, and getting to watch them over the years and develop into well-known people in the magazines and industry was a fantastic time in history, and I'm so thrilled to have been part of it. And through the years, doing the magazine, I get to write about some of these people and meet more of them as the writer. They treat you a little bit better as a writer.
Right.
But they take you out to dinner, which is cool. But, you get to know them over the years. And I thought that was really fun. I really enjoyed that time period. It's like being there when the Model T was made. How cool is that, to be part of that history? Definitely. To me, being there, part of the martial arts icons who were nobody, when they first came here, but slowly developed into icons and parts of history. And to grow up with that was a great period of time. And then, so when I started writing, I took that to heart, and I really wanted to do things, traditional on history and all that. But again, it wasn't doing what I wanted, the magazine, and I really wanted to focus on history. So in 1988, when I sold the magazine, I said, okay, I want to do a museum. I think a museum would be a fantastic way to keep our history alive, because nobody's doing it. Oh, someone had tried a Bruce Lee museum. It was just a storefront, in front of somebody's store. It only lasted about a year. But I said, I can't go down that road. I can't do that. So if I'm going to do this, I need to do it right. So I talked with a few people, Doug Wong and a few others, about the idea. They thought it was a great idea. And I said, okay, I know nothing about doing a museum, and it would be foolish of me to open a place and start putting stuff on the wall that I knew nothing about. You know what I mean? So I had to make sure it was done right. It was done professionally. I didn't need it to fail. I needed to make sure it was going to continue. So I went back to college for another 8 to 9 years. I took classes on public relations, on marketing. I got a degree in business. Wow. I went to the American Film Institute for 3 years. I learned how to be a producer and editor, how to edit videos. I learned how to do museum design, museum decoration, museum restoration. I had to learn bookkeeping. I had to learn everything possible you can think of, from programming to, from artwork to everything you can think of in starting a museum. I did not want to be someone just put something on the wall. I need to make sure this was going to work and done professionally. Martial arts is wonderful, but so many areas are not professional at all, which is sad to see.
Yep.
And I think we need that professionalism, because people don't take us, as martial artists, as professionals. We need to show them we are, So I thought by learning everything possible on how to do a museum, I had to do first. And that's what I did. I worked as a producer. I produced commercials and all that as a livelihood. And then about 1999, I said, okay, I know enough. I feel I know enough that to go forward with a museum. I had it registered as a nonprofit 501c3. And my friend Firebores Jacques helped me put it on the internet, because back in 1999, the internet was still really new.
Yep.
And we got it on the internet and officially launched the museum on September 15th. And there it was on the internet, Martial Arts History Museum. And we were, from that point on, a few years later, we were a traveling exhibit, and we traveled all over the country and to get people interested in the museum. And then in 2006, we opened in the city of Santa Clarita. And in 2010, we relocated to the city in Burbank, where we are today. So the museum is now 21 years old.
Wow.
But,
Congratulations.
as Jun Rhee told me when I talked to everybody over the years, getting to know them personally. I talked to Jun Rhee before he passed away, a few years before, and he said, which I'm very proud of what he said. He said, Michael, you did the museum right. That's the right way to do it.
Nice.
And I feel that as well. I put through the blood, sweat, and tears of learning this. I took this all over the road, to see what people like, what they didn't like, what the museum was going to be. Is it going to be a who's who? Is it going to be a cultural? Is it going to be, I had to weigh all that through our exhibits and show people, okay, do you like this? Do you like that? Do surveys, do all that stuff. And I did everything. And once I got my business degree and everything else, I went forward with the museum. And here we are today.
Wow. So just talk a little, like if someone decides to come visit the museum, what are they going to experience when they're there? What can they look forward to seeing?
Well, my overall goal of the museum, and you got to have goals. You got to have goals. And Walt Disney has been the guy I've always looked up to. John Corcoran is my mentor for writing, and Walt Disney is my mentor for business. And my goal has always been to be like a village with the museum to be a place like City Walk or something like that, or Disney, downtown Disney. It would be a place that you'd have the museum as this main focal point. You'd have a theater for entertainment and shows and movies. And then you'd have a village area where you have places to eat and different shops and stores. And that way you can have celebrations and New Year's or Chinese New Year's and have parades and demonstrations and all that. That has been my ultimate goal for the museum. We're not there yet, but we will eventually get there. A home for the martial arts worldwide. Hey, how cool it would be to go into the restaurant to get a Chuck Norris burger or a Jackie Chan pastrami or something.
That would actually that'd be really cool. I like
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm positive without a doubt it's going to happen. But for now, with the help of so many individuals, and these are all little guys, all of us, I call us the little guys, and all of us giving their money and helping out, we established a museum. We finally, the world's first and only martial arts history museum, very professional. Everything in here is professional, right to the T. We do our best. I learned museum design. I went to every museum you can think of. I want to say thank you to the Natural History Museum, the Japanese American Museum. Many museums have met with me personally, taking me out to lunch, taking me all over their place, showing me how they did it. And I'm so grateful that the museums just helped me out. They didn't feel me as competition. They wanted to help me out, which they've done.
That's great.
And so I'm very grateful for that. And so when people come to the museum, they get to enjoy a nice look at martial arts history, but also a history of each of the countries. And I wanted to focus on culture as our main thing, but culture is tradition, martial arts and music, martial arts and art, martial arts and dance, and all that, and where the arts came from. So you're looking at China, you're looking at the Boxer Rebellion, you're looking at the Chinese lion dancing. What role does that play in Chinese kung fu? How the gold rush was part of it, and all that history, of where it came from, and then how it came to America and how it influenced our movies, our film, our animation, and more. So I look at each of the specifically Asian countries. And again, we're focused on Asian arts, but we're not limited to.
Right.
We're limited on space. We had a bigger space, we could go more. But for right now, you look at the country of Japan, where the samurai, the role they played, the artistry of the samurai sword, what it meant, the kabuki theater, and how they had samurai plays and different things like that. You look at Muay Thai, you look at the Filipino dancing, you look at the Chinese Hawaiian Lua. You look at all that stuff. You look at anime. We have a section on anime, the history of anime and the influence it had on martial arts. And then we have a section on movies and magazines.
Nice.
The TV and the timeline, the whole timeline of where martial arts began and the films and TV and all the way to current day. So it's a nice lesson in history. It's just like you're going to the Natural History Museum or somewhere learning about the history of a country and all that. We do that here. This way, people who never know anything about martial arts, which majority of the people that do come are, they get to learn everything, unique about the martial arts, how it came from, how, King Kamehameha did this and how this means and what that means. And they leave here with a new sense of history and a more appreciation for the martial arts.
I love it. I love that you're doing this, and hopefully I'll get to visit it someday soon. So talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame. I was kind of reading through the website and seeing that it looks like that's been going since about '99. Just a little bit about like how the people are picked for that and how that goes.
Well, before I get into that,
Okay.
One of the things about the museum is I didn't want it to be just a museum. We needed to do more.
Right.
And I think we have events that we do that we bring in a lot of people, and that's really the lifeblood of the museum, keeping it going. We do days that we honor people in our back area. We have like a theater there, and we're able to honor people, talk about their life before they pass away. And it's a great time we have. We do that about once or twice a month. We show movie screenings. We have fairs. We have craft fairs. And then we have book signings. And then we also do a lot of humanitarian work. We do a lot of classes for those who don't know how to do stuff for work, for on the internet, or how to do your YouTube, or how to write a book, or how to do different things, get into acting,
Wow.
or different things to help in humanitarian wise. We do blood drives. We collect old uniforms that people don't want to use, and we work with other schools to distribute them for kids who cannot afford uniforms. And we work with Make-A-Wish Foundation and a lot of things that we do that humanitarian wise that I think it's important for the museum. It's great to have a museum, but we need to be part of the community, not only this community, but the world community.
Right.
And by doing special drives and funds and different things like that, I think that's very important for the museum to do. There are a lot of great martial arts supply companies, and they do wonderful things, and they make a lot of money, which we are so happy they do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to give back in different ways. That's what we're going to be remembered for in the end, giving back. And by helping the museum and helping us to do humanitarian efforts, I think that's a big thing, real big thing.
Nice.
But that's why I want to put it in first, before the Hall of Fame.
Definitely.
But let's talk about the Hall of Fame. But anyway, the museum's a fun place to visit. Really,
yeah.
People really enjoy it. Our goal is to get to a bigger place, and we will. It's going to happen one way or another. It's going to happen. You just got to keep pushing forward. But anyway, the Hall of Fame. Being in the martial arts for 53 years, I've seen every Hall of Fame come and every Hall of Fame go. There are so many Halls of Fames. They're just all over the place. Most of them, 99% are money-making, things to get people in. But I will never say anything besides that, bad about anybody's Hall of Fame. I think people should receive recognition, and I'm very happy people are receiving that. People have done a lot for the martial arts. They have sacrificed so much. They may not have done it in a historic, something historic, but they have done great things. Many people have done great things and, given confidence to kids and helped, in different areas, they have helped the community. And I'm very proud when people get recognized. I really am proud of that. I wish they wouldn't call it the Hall of Fame, but that's okay. There's nothing I can do about it. But I'm very glad people are getting recognition. I really am. And again, I would never say anything bad about any individual Hall of Fame. I don't, it's not worth saying anything bad about anybody. So I don't do it. That's one of my policies. I just don't do it. I don't need to hear it. Period. I don't need to, let's just move forward and do what we can to help the museum. That's just what it's about. Because when we're gone, it's going to be the museum only left. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So anyway, what I did is I said, okay, there are so many Hall of Fames. How can we make this different? And I said, well, okay, let's make it on historic. Babe Ruth is in the Hall of Fame for what he did in baseball, the home runs, the pitching, the many contributions Babe Ruth did for baseball. And I said, that has to be with the museum. We need to look at people who made an historic impact and changed either America or changed the world, either one, but something that changed history. That's what it needs to be about. There are many fantastic people in the martial arts that do, again, they're just skill is unsurpassed on many of them. Many of them make me look like I'm walking, they're so good. But, we need something to give full recognition where people can look up to without a single question of why that individual is in there. So that's why we created the Hall of Fame books as well. It is not their biography, but it is a look at what they did to change history.
Okay.
And I think that's what brings value to the Hall of Fame on what they did. It's not of the year events. It's over, a significant part of history, a significant part of history. Jackie Chan was one of the early ones to introduce comedy into the martial arts. Kwai Wong was the first one to open a commercial school to teach non-Chinese. People who have done historic making things that change the direction of the martial arts. Those are the ones that should be recognized and kept as part of history. And that's why I'm very proud of the Martial Arts History Museum's Hall of Fame. It looks at historical achievements. So when you look at it, there's no question why that person is in there. Period.
Right,
There's no question. You can see what they did. And to make it fair, it is the previous Hall of Famers that make the vote. They're the ones that nominate the individual. It's up to the museum.
Okay.
We don't nominate anybody at the museum. That way they can't yell at us.
There you go.
It is up to them. And it's up to them. And they provide us with a letter saying what that person did to change history. Okay. And then we just verify the information. That's what we do at the museum, make sure it's correct. But it is up to the previous Hall of Famers. And I am so thrilled that they are so picky. I really am. In the beginning, a few of them says, oh, I'd like to nominate this person and this person. I said, okay, that's fine. You can nominate whoever you want. It's up to you. But keep this in mind. You are putting them at an historic level, just like you. It's up to you. Do you feel they have done a historic achievement in history and they would be equal to your level? They go, oh, I understand. Okay, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. We need to have some place that someone can say, okay, there's the Hall of Fame. We need to have that. We need to have that. And I'm very thankful that the newspapers and everybody calls us every time someone passes away because they know we have the information. And we have a database of about 100, maybe 250,000 pictures of every martial artist you can think of.
Wow.
And stories for each martial artist. And we provide them with all that with no charge or anything. So that way they can have an accurate information about that individual. And they ask us, is it there in the Hall of Fame? And they look at us, if they're in our Hall of Fame, we tell them, yes, they're in the museum's Hall of Fame or not. We do not advertise anybody else's. This is the only one we recognize because writing for the magazines and all that, I won't say anything about it, but we need something that people can really, look up to and say, this is why they're in there. This is why they're there. They made history. They changed history.
That's great. And one other thing I wanted you to talk about is DragonFest. Let's talk a little bit about how that started and what's involved in that.
DragonFest, we got so many great things at the museum that we've been doing as a promoter. I used to promote before this. I used to promote the San Fernando Valley Health Fair. I promoted a convention for Las Vegas, and I promoted a few other conventions. So being a director and coordinator of other conventions, it was a lot of fun. It really was. So years ago, I don't remember the exact date, Jiro Kimura, he was a martial arts kung fu icon in the early days, man of many weapons. He was in Big Trouble in Little China, a bunch of movies he was in. And he started a convention called DragonFest. And it was a small little room, maybe about 5 or 6 tables. And that was it. And then over the years, it's slowly gotten bigger and bigger, and more people were having a table there, mostly, celebrities and, independent celebrities and martial artists would come and, icons of the martial arts. And then it started growing, getting bigger and bigger. And then finally around its 9th year, it started to hit its peak, I think. 8th year, actually the 8th year kind of hit its peak. And the 9th year, it wasn't as good as the 8th year. Yep. It kind of hit its peak at that point. I think he was tired of doing it. I don't know. I was part of it. I would do their website. I'd have a booth there. I had a lot of fun. I didn't run it, but I just had a lot of fun being there. I was there for about 4 or 5 years before it closed. So it closed about 10 years. It ran for 9 years, and then it closed about 10 years. There was a 10-year gap. There was no convention at all. And then everybody kept bugging me. He said, look, you have the museum. What better person to put the DragonFest back on than the museum? And for years, they kept bugging me. And I said, okay, I gave in. I said, okay, I know how to do a convention. I've done it before. So I did. I arranged a place. I got a hold of everybody who used to be at the other place, at the old DragonFest. And I said, look, with your blessing, Gerald, is that okay? And he said, you have my blessing. Go for it. And I said, great. Okay. So we started the museum. The museum restarted DragonFest, and everybody came back. Everybody said, we're back. DragonFest is back. And the old flavor of the DragonFest was there again. And everybody came back, and it's been, growing bigger and bigger and bigger ever since. And now we do classes on school management and working out and techniques and, bunch of different things that we do as part of the convention. So it's a lot of fun. It is a huge reunion of martial arts icons. People who haven't seen each other 20, 30 years, there they are, So it's really fun. I have a blast. I really do have a blast, even though I run it. I have a blast doing it. It's just, I hate for it to end. It's that fun to do. And everybody comes by, and most people, 99% are very gracious. We have a few, that always want to get in for free. You know how that is. But anyway, we try to ignore them. But everybody pretty much has a fun time. They come in at 10 or 11 and they don't leave. They stay till we end. We have to shoosh them out the door because they're having so much fun.
Nice.
People have, I haven't seen my instructor in 40 years or whatever. And there they are. And people say, I wanted to come here just to say hello to you. And I say, oh, hello, how are you? And meet you. We have performances, we have music, we have dancing, we have demonstrations, you name it. It's a great event. It's a 2-day event. And it's just a blast. It really is a blast. And it's more about I think of it as a big reunion for a lot of people who haven't seen each other, but it's a great way to push your stuff and get it out there, especially now, push your wares and different things out there. We have a great time. We've hit so far about 3,000, close to 3,000 people at our last one. And then of course, COVID hit. Yep. And we'll see what happens at the next one, but it's going to be next year. So we'll see what happens, but DragonFest is a great time. Cool. It's a great convention. I have a lot of fun, and that's it. DragonFest is just great.
Hey, I'm hoping to make that too. I actually need to get back out to California for a visit. So maybe I'll plan it around those dates just so I can sneak up and go to it. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, it is a great time. It really is. You're like a kid in a candy store, everybody's there, from the Karate Kid people to different movie stars and different icons of the martial arts to MMA guys and, these bare knuckle guys and all this stuff. It's pretty fun.
It'd be fun. Maybe if I can get to the point and get there, it'd be fun to actually do the podcast live from DragonFest, maybe.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of broadcasts live there. We do. Yeah.
Cool. So we got a few questions to kind of fun ones to wrap it up and everything. So I'm just kind of curious, I know we talked a little bit about, you mentioned a little bit about like MMA and Monkey Kung Fu. I'm just curious, what are your overall thoughts on MMA coming from a more traditional martial arts background? What are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC?
I appreciate anything that will promote the martial arts, that will promote the arts to everybody. Doing martial arts, I think everybody should do. Everybody should do martial arts.
Agreed.
It gives you confidence, gave me confidence. It helps you defend yourself. It makes you a more balanced person. As Arnold Yukita said, martial arts made me a better man. Martial arts, if you're going, especially, you got to go to a good school, first of all, anyway. Mm-hmm. But, martial artists can, we can combat so much if we all do martial arts. It helps us create goals, setting opportunities to reach another goal, to reach another belt. It helps us become a better public speaker and get more confidence. It helps bring people out of their shell. People have different challenges, life challenges, and it helps them overcome their challenges. I know my friend, instructor, teaches some kids who could barely talk and barely walk. And in a few months, there they are doing, a few moves and actually talking back and forth because the confidence martial arts brings. So I am just the biggest advocate for the benefits of the martial arts. We can solve so much if we all did martial arts working together. We can solve so much. And the things, the inspiration it puts in us, I cannot say enough of the great things that martial arts does. So anything that will promote it, from MMA to movies to Batman to anything to promote the martial arts, I'm always in favor of. I may not agree with all the fighting on the ground
Yep.
and all the different rules and all over the place in the MMA and all that. But that, it's just another evolution in martial arts. We went from judo to karate to kickboxing to tournaments and all that stuff. We go through evolutions in martial arts, and I think anything that again can promote the arts, I think is a good thing. I really do. I know people say this art doesn't work and that doesn't work and that's making us look bad and all that. And I understand. I completely understand that. And I understand their point of view, and that's their point of view, and that's great. But I think anything that we can do to inspire people to learn martial arts, I think that's a benefit for all of us.
Great. I love that answer. Very good. So if you had to pick just one martial artist that you admire, who would be at the top of your list?
Alexander Fushang. You see, I said that without even a hesitation.
That's right. Nice.
Without even a hesitation.
Most people got to think at least a little bit about it.
Oh, no. Alexander Fushang, most people don't know who he is.
Okay.
Alexander Fushang, back when I was doing Kung Fu in the early days, this was before, around, again, a lot of this stuff overlaps.
Mm-hmm.
Around the 70s, Bruce Lee was out there, but I didn't know who he was. I heard of Bruce Lee. I heard of this guy fighting really fast, that he was a fast martial artist, very talented. I would hear that from people, Wally J and other people. I'd hear that he was an amazing guy. But before I even heard about him, the Kung Fu movie boom started, with the five fingers of death and all that stuff. And I was going to the theater in Chinatown and 69, 70, something like that. And there were these Shaw Brothers movies. And I was doing a style called Hungar or Silum. Many names. It's Shaolin style. That's what basically it is. A Southern style Shaolin. And I was doing this style. And on the Shaw Brothers, I saw the Shaw Brothers movies. And there was their team of good guys, Chen Quan Tai, T Lung, David Carradine, all these guys. And then Alexander Fushang. Alexander Fushang I looked a little bit like him, just a smidge, maybe 1/16 of myself looked like him, because he looked, different. He looked a little different. And he was doing the same style I was. So he was doing Kung Fu on the screen, Shaolin Kung Fu, and he was always laughing. He was like a comedian. He was before Jackie Chan. He had died later in a car crash. But had he lived, there would have been no such thing as Jackie Chan. It would have been Fushang, who had been the comedian guy, because he was that funny. But he was so talented. And I love the Shaw Brothers movies. And then when he do his forms and stuff on there, they're the same forms I did. They were exactly the same. So I grew up to admire Alexander Fushang, and I mimic everything about him because he was doing my style. So I wore his outfit sometimes, and I carry his fans sometimes, what was in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed. I was there at the Shaw Brothers, I was at the theaters in Chinatown. Doug Wong was there, James Liu was there. Everybody was there. We were all there crowded into the theaters in Chinatown. And I really admired Fushang, and he became my mentor, shall we say, the guy I looked up to most in the martial arts. He did martial arts. He wasn't, an expert in martial arts, but he was an actor, of course. But he did his martial arts very well. And him, I think, of all people, I really admired and look up to. And I still look up to him today.
Great.
So I'm glad to have someone else made a statue of a bust of his head and donated it to us. And I said, how did you know?
That's cool.
But anyway, we have it here in the museum. But the guy I look up to above all is Alexander Fushang. He is my guy. And my favorite movie of all time are the Shaolin martial arts, the Shaw Brothers movies, the ones with Alexander Fushang and the whole group in those movies back then.
Okay, perfect. So now over 50 years in martial arts, do you have one philosophy you've learned that kind of stands out for you?
I would say always be prepared. That's my philosophy.
Okay.
Always be prepared. Always be armed in one way or another. Whether your fist or I'm a believer in blades.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should always be armed in one way or another. Really do. You need to protect yourself in some way. Learn your martial arts skill well enough. People can learn a lot of great kicks, and that's fantastic. But I rely on three movements. That's it. Three movements with my knees and elbows. And see, I'm giving away my secret here. My knees and elbows, special movements that I love, that I do very well. I say, look, you can probably beat me, but I'm going to hurt you real bad.
There you go.
So, but thankfully I never had to really use it. I only used it twice in my life. But I think people should know, especially a couple great moves, be armed with those moves. And that way they can get out of different situations. You got to be able to protect yourself. And I think being armed and either learning martial arts and be armed with your hands and feet, or whatever techniques or whatever else you need to do, protect yourself. I think that's important, especially today. Today it's horrible out there, and I think more than someone almost tried to carjack me the other day.
Wow.
And thank God I'm armed. But it ended quickly.
That's good. Always
But
be prepared.
yeah, you do. You not always. You always have to be prepared, but you always need to be armed in some way, and especially protect you and your family. You really do. And I think above all, even though learning martial arts is wonderful and everything else it brings, but keep in mind the goal of martial arts is to defend yourself. You know what I mean? And that's the ultimate goal. And I think that's important that we all be able to, find those techniques, find those movements, whatever you need to be able to defend yourself, appropriately.
Perfect. So now
That's the word.
you can't pick one of your own. What's your favorite martial arts book?
Book. Oh my God. I read this great book with Jean LaBelle. That was really fun. A while back, I just finished Steve Sexton's book about doing a roadhouse fighting. That was pretty fun.
Nice.
I try to read a book every year. I do my best, every couple of years, because I'm writing usually the book itself. I was reading this one. It's called, where is it? It's right there on my desk. Let me see if I can see it. It's Bruce Lee's. It's got a red cover. It's with. It's a story of the early days. Gosh, sorry, I can't remember the name of it. But it's about the early days of Wally J. The Bruce Lee, when they first met Bruce Lee and Leo Fong and all those guys. I forget. And then I'm also reading. Darlene Parker sent me a book from Elvis and Ed Parker. So I'm reading that one as well. So I'm reading two books at the same time and getting through those. So those are pretty good. I'm enjoying the Ed Parker one. That's pretty fun. I really enjoyed that, but I'm really enjoying the other one. I wish I could remember the name. Oh, it's got a different name. It's got a red cover, and I've really gotten into it. But it talks about the early days. It's kind of cool. They talk about the early days, talk about Leo Fong, which I know Leo Fong very well, good friend of mine. And all these guys, Wally J and all Tino Losega, and those guys are in the book. And I said, hey, I remember that. I remember they were doing those parties or this event or that Lua or that. And here it is in the book, which is kind of cool to see. So I do my best to read a couple books a year. I'm trying to write a book every year. I've been really bad this year, but I think it's important we do reading and reading a few books. I love the Star Wars books. I read some Star Wars books. They're a lot of fun to read that, and I like to read kids books because I'm writing kids stories. I just read some Goosebumps one, and those are pretty fun.
Makes sense.
Great writers. Oh my God, they're so good. And I use some of that style into my books. I say, oh yeah, I thought of that, or that's pretty good the way they approached it. This way I'm going to do my book sort of that approach to that movement. That little part or something like that. So children's books I really enjoy reading. They only take me a few days to read.
Yeah,
but those are pretty fun. The Goosebumps books, they're pretty fun to read.
Yeah, I used to read a book a week, and I'd love to get back to that. For about 6 years in a row, I read a book a week, and I about 2 years ago, I just slowed down, and I'll still do 10 or 20 a year, but I need to get back to doing a book a week.
I know, trying to write this. I'm trying to write the next volume of the Hall of Fame. At the same time, I'm writing press releases for the museum, every couple of days, and then trying to do all the rest of it. Doesn't give me too much time, but I try to squeeze in a few pages a day. I really try. And I think it's important we read, because it helps our grammar, helps everything else, and helps us in school and all that. I wish I'd encourage more martial arts to do that.
Definitely.
I think that would really help us in school and the kids and all that. That's why I think the book, Itchy Book, is fun for the kids. I designed it as book reports, so you can write book reports, because, so you can give it to a class and they can write, okay, what did he mean by this? Or why was Itchy learning that? Or when he used the samurai sword, why did he cut it this way? And why did he do that? It's designed as a book report, and that's what kids use it as. So they buy it in a group of books. So that way they give it to their students, and then they write reports on it, and it kind of encourages them as well. So.
All right. So
that answers your question.
Oh, definitely. Two more. Favorite martial arts TV show.
I love the Kung Fu series. I really did.
Yep.
I thought that was a blast. But the new one I'm just in love with. It's it's supposed to be a Bruce Lee story, kind of. It's not a Bruce Lee story. It's called
The Warrior.
The Warrior.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Great show. So
isn't
good.
that fantastic?
Yeah, it's based on his notes what the original Kung Fu was supposed to be.
Yeah, that was really good show. I really enjoy that one. I really do. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
They do a great job with it. So
yeah, they do. The camera work is great. The acting is fantastic. Yeah, though it is not as good as iCarly. It's not as good as iCarly. My favorite TV show.
Nice. Okay.
I was on it once, so I got to. I'm bragging about it. I was on there as an extra once. It's a great.
There you go.
Show. But anyway, that The Warrior is a fantastic TV show. I really, really enjoyed that a lot. I really do.
Cool. And then final question. You kind of talked a little about growing up watching Shaw Brothers movies, but if you had to pick one, what's your favorite all-time martial arts movie?
I think it is so the names kind of change, the Shaw Brothers movies when they come here. I think it's called Shaolin Martial Arts.
Okay.
This is the one where, of course, the Manchus take over,
Yep.
And the school has to take off, and two of the students have to train in a different style of martial art. And one of them has to learn like Eagle Claw. So he has to go into the river and grab fish and all that. And then they fight the bad guys and lose, of course. And then two more guys have to go out, and Fu Sheng is one of them. And he has to learn crane style. So tiger style and crane style Kung Fu. And the other guy has to learn how to hit this bell. So it is the same one in Kill Bill. Remember how she does like a punch, and people think it's a 1-inch punch?
Yep.
It's a punch. Well, it's actually from the Shaw Brothers, that movie. It's the one where he hits, it's opposite. He hits where the bell is, and then his fingers come out and hits the bell. And nice. I think it's called Shaolin Martial Arts. And then they fight the bad guy in the end, and of course they win. But not all the time. Shaw Brothers is unpredictable. The good guy sometimes loses.
Yeah, I just found the trailer for it, 1974, Shaolin Martial Arts by the Shaw Brothers.
I think that's it. I think that because there's one called Shaolin Martial Arts, and the other one's called...
there's one called Martial Arts of Shaolin from 1986. Yeah, it's like 12 years new. Yeah, so the older one.
They both have Shaolin in it.
Yep.
Shaolin Martial Arts and Martial Arts of Shaolin or something like that. I forget, but it's with Fu Sheng, but fantastic movie, and that's my favorite movie of all time.
Nice.
Though my second is Kill Bill. That's the second favorite martial art movie for me.
So as a Kill Bill fan, are you hoping, like most others, that he finally does Kill Bill 3?
Oh yeah. I can watch Kill Bill forever. I think I watched everything on it, from Sonny Chiba, saying the way he talked. It was so funny.
That music was my ringtone for about 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
And then of course Lucy Liu, my God, so she's fantastic. And I just love Kill Bill. Just fantastic movie. That's my second favorite movie of all time, the two Kill Bills.
Nice. Very cool. Well, Michael, I just want to thank you. This has been a lot of fun. It's great learning about your background, and definitely about the museum and all they have to offer. And I will put links for the museum and DragonFest and your books and anything else you want me to. I'll put in the show notes when the episode comes out so people can check out everything you're involved in.
Well, thank you. If I may add in closing, we are never going to have this opportunity again to have a museum. This is it. This is not an easy thing. I can tell you that. Financially, it's been very hard on me, but I think it's something that we need to do, to have a history of the martial arts. We need to preserve it in some way. And we will never, ever have anybody going to school and learning it, specifically for this, giving up everything for a museum. We will never have this opportunity again. And I think it's important that we all get together and get behind this, especially now while we're still here. Many great people have passed away and never got the opportunity to see the museum. One of my dear friends, very well-known guy, he passed away, and they put his picture on the cover of a magazine. And even though I applauded the people putting his cover and thought it was wonderful, but I said, look, he never got to enjoy it while he was alive, And this museum, while we are still here, guys, we're not getting any younger. We just lost, James DeMille and many other people we just lost. And we're not getting younger. And this is a worthwhile cause. It's something that's bigger than all of us. And it's a legacy we can all leave, even if you're not in there. It's still a legacy we can leave, that we were there to preserve the history of the martial arts. What better way to give back to the martial arts and all that has done for us than have a museum? So all that history of Jun Rhee and Bong Soo-han and Joe Louis and all these guys, what better way to keep their history alive than to have a museum? As Cecil Peoples once said, I want my great-great-great-grandson to see what his great-great-grandfather did to change martial arts history. So again, I cannot say that with all wholeheartedness. We will never get this opportunity again to have a museum in our lives. And while we're still alive, I believe, I hope all these people who have benefited so greatly in movies and in martial arts supply companies, whatever you have benefit from the martial arts, if it's given you confidence to run a company, whatever, let's give back and support this great cause of the Martial Arts History Museum. So there'll be a piece of history that you can say right now, I was a piece of that history. One day your great-great-great-great-great-grandkids say, my great-great-great-great-grandfather helped start that museum.
Yep,
so
exactly.
Let's leave a legacy for all to enjoy by supporting the Martial Arts History Museum.
I applaud you for doing it. I love what you're doing. And I'm, like I said, I'm hoping to get out there next year and I just keep up the good work, and anything I can do to spread the word, I will do for you. So
thank you, Brian, very much. And thank you for the show.
Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.